My own background is that of a technologist. I'm a computer scientist by training. And the way we really started working in this whole area was from a very, very quixotic perspective that we'll build technology and it's going to change the world, right? It's going to, well, mobile phones are everywhere and we'll just bring in inclusiveness through that. And then, we can do so many things. We can empower people to voice themselves, right? We can provide health messaging. We can provide all sorts of agricultural information. So what we were really thinking, right, was a very, very rosy picture that technology can really change everything. Digitalization can bring in inclusion. But actually, it's the other way. Which is what we realized, right? That we've been talking about partnerships and community institutions to bring in. And so let me talk about how we actually started realizing why those things were very, very important in actually the step one of driving technology adoption. And then once technology adoption is driven and there is inclusion, then of course we can probably get to seeing the advantages that technology can provide, like in bringing scale or various things. What we started realizing was that when we're talking about marginalized communities, right, which are the ones we want to include first, right, who are sort of the ones getting left out, it's actually very hard because those are people who, for example, are not using smartphones, right, definitely, as of today. Even, for example, we talk about women, right, from a gender inclusion standpoint, right, we see the same challenges that mobile access, ownership of phones is very limited. Mobile literacy itself is very limited. So I'll try to touch upon some of the themes that are being brought out. We're doing a very interesting project in Bihar in partnership with Jivika, which runs women's self-help groups. And so here the idea is that we want to get women to start using our platform, which works on ordinary phones. It doesn't require smartphones, just ordinary phones for voice messaging. And through that, we want to provide health and nutrition messaging to the women. So in theory, we had everything in place, right? We had Jivika as a partner who already had the inroads into the community to reach the women. And then we had the technology platform to actually push messages towards the women. But what we've realized in the past 4-5 months that we've been working, right, is that just access to phones is a big challenge. So the first step actually we're trying to overcome is just reinforce messaging that, well, why don't you start using the phone? And even we've had to introduce modules on mobile literacy, that how to dial numbers, how to save numbers, right? Those sort of things are quite limited as of now, right? So while the vision of Digital India and everything is of course there, and we're rapidly moving towards that, but one of my points is that we can't really forget, right, about the limitations, capacity limitations and access limitations which actually exist. And here, we should really rely on partnerships and institutions like Jivika, for example, right, where Jivika is bringing in access to women, for example, right, because otherwise it's very hard to get across to drive technology adoption or any sort of a messaging. And linked to that, poor communities, for example, then in our own work in driving adoption of a technology platform, we've actually created institutions where they didn't exist. So we actually, in our work, we identify volunteers from the community. And these volunteers are basically, in some sense, power users of technology. And right, they're older, they have a solid social credibility in the community, and they want to do things for the community. So what we found is that after training these volunteers and bringing them as part of our organization, they've been able to drive that kind of a technology adoption, because without actually demonstrating to people the advantages of using platforms or technologies or digital tools and such, right, it's very difficult to get them to even conceptualize how these tools can benefit them. So that was a slightly long rant to bust the myth of technology in some sense, that technology can solve problems, because just to drive technology adoption is difficult. But once it's driven, right, then, I mean, one of the themes I want to touch upon is social justice, right? So here, again, we've seen the importance of community institutions, right? So through the technology, we were able to drive adoption from women users, from low-income communities, right? And we've been working a lot on social accountability over here, where people call and they report problems they're facing on government schemes, like Narega wage issues or problems with ration shops or various things. And then the same volunteers who actually help bring these users onto the platform, we also work with these volunteers to take up issues to the government officials so that there is follow-up on resolution of some of these grievances. And again, the point is that technology alone would not have been sufficient, because you can have grievances getting reported, you can have grievances being sent to government departments, but unless we've done exact pilots of that sort, right, where we have systems with just the technology, and then we have systems where humans are supplementing the technology. The civil society represented by these volunteers, when they follow up on issues with the government officials, that's when, you know, we see some actual change happening. Because, I mean, that's how the systems are, that they require that kind of a community-driven or external push. So I hope, I mean, I've tried to address both the points in terms of the need for partnerships and institutions to drive technology adoption. And once it's driven, sure, it can bring in inclusion, but there again, it is fundamentally important to have these community institutions and civil societies to actually see the benefit coming out of participation on technology.